Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today's video is part 3 of French Revolution. Please subscribe to the channel and watch the video till the end. The Reign of Terror. The period from 1793 to 1794 is referred to as the Reign of Terror. Robespierre followed a policy of severe control and punishment. All those whom he saw as being enemies of the Republic were arrested, imprisoned and were guillotined. Robespierre's government issued laws placing maximum ceiling on wages and prices. Peasants were forced to transport their grain to the cities and sell it at prices fixed by the government. The use of more expensive white flour was forbidden. Churches were shut down and their buildings were converted into barracks and offices. Traditional titles like Sir and Madam were replaced by citoyen. Robespierre pursued his policies so relentlessly that even his supporters began to demand moderation. Finally, he was convicted by a court in July 1794, arrested and on the next day sent to the guillotine. This allowed the wealthier middle classes to seize the power, and appointed a directory made up of 5 members. However, the directors often clashed and created a political instability, and paved the way for the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. Role of women in revolution. From the very beginning, women were active participants in the events, and hoped that government would introduce measures to improve their lives. Most women of the Third Estate had to work as seamstresses, sold flowers, fruits, and vegetables at the market. They did not have access to education or job training. In order to discuss and voice their interests, women started their own 60 political clubs and newspapers. The Society of Revolutionary and Republican Women was most famous of them. They demanded the right to vote, to be elected to the assembly and to hold political office. Women's struggle received a setback during the Reign of Terror. Many prominent women were arrested and a number of them were executed. But the movement continued for next 200 years in many countries of the world. Finally, in 1946, women in France won the right to vote. The abolition of slavery. One of the most revolutionary social reforms of the Jacobin regime was the abolition of slavery in the French colonies. The colonies in the Caribbean were important suppliers of commodities, such as tobacco, indigo, sugar, and coffee. But the Europeans were reluctant to go and work in the distant and unfamiliar lands, which created shortage of labor. So this was met by a triangular slave trade between Europe, Africa, and the Americans. The slave trade began in the 17th century. French merchants sailed to African coast, buy the slaves and pack them tightly into the ships for 3-month-long journey across the Atlantic to the Caribbean. They were sold to the plantation owners. National Assembly did not pass any law to abolish the slavery, fearing opposition from businessmen. Later in 1794 legislated a law to free all slaves. Anyhow, slavery was finally abolished in French colonies in 1848. The Revolution and everyday life. After 1789 revolution, France saw many changes in the lives of men, women, and children. One important law that came into effect soon after the revolution was the abolition of censorship. Freedom of press also meant that opposing views of events could be expressed. Plays, songs and festive processions was one way they could grasp the ideas of liberty and justice. In 1804, Napoleon Bonaparte crowned himself Emperor of France. He introduced many laws such as the protection of private property and uniform system of weights and measurements. Initially, many saw Napoleon as a liberator, but soon he came to be viewed as an invading force. He was finally defeated at Waterloo in 1815. The ideas of liberty and democratic rights were the most important legacy of the French Revolution, which spread to the rest of Europe during the 19th century. Tipu Sultan and Rajaram Mohan Roy are 2 examples of individuals who responded to the ideas coming from revolutionary France. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share and subscribe the channel for more.